On the Sumy axis, the defense forces of Ukraine are making every effort to create a buffer zone on Russian territory so that Russia cannot shell border settlements or penetrate into Ukrainian territory. Ivan Shevtsov, head of the press service of the 15th Mobile Border Guard Unit of the Steel Frontier Brigade, told Espreso, "For the Russians, the buffer zone means Ukrainian territory where the Ukrainian Defense Forces should not be positioned close enough to allow artillery strikes. However, so far the Russian aggressors have achieved nothing, and we are doing everything possible to create this buffer zone on Russian territory so the enemy cannot shell our border settlements or enter Ukrainian territory, especially in the Sumy direction," Shevtsov said. According to the head of the press service of the 15th Mobile Border Guard Detachment of the Steel Frontier Brigade, "We understand that the Russian troops will try to move further, because for them the buffer zone is a way to penetrate deeper into Ukrainian territory and push the Ukrainian Defense Forces deeper into Ukraine. At the same time, in the combat zone, the soldiers pay little attention to Putin's statements or political meetings. We understand that the Russian invaders must be defeated completely, and as long as the leadership in Russia doesn't change, the fighting will continue. That's why every day we work to destroy the enemy," Shevtsov emphasized. Recall, Russian ruler Vladimir Putin has decided to continue the offensive in 2025. He wants to create a so-called buffer zone, 15 to 20 kilometers deep, primarily in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions, writes RBK Ukraine, citing sources. As of now, Moscow has already determined priorities for the summer-autumn campaign and has no plans to scale back hostilities yet, according to several sources in the defense forces. During the summer-autumn offensive campaign, the enemy plans to focus its main efforts on fulfilling two strategic tasks: seizure of the entire territory of Luhansk and Donetsk regions within their administrative borders, the formation of a so-called buffer zone 15 to 20 kilometers deep, primarily in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions. One of the interlocutors clarified that in case of success in these areas, the enemy is planning offensive actions to seize new territories in the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Sources predict that during the summer-autumn campaign, Putin will not be able to significantly strengthen his positions on the battlefield. The interlocutors consider the ability of the Russian Federation to reach the administrative borders of the Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, or completely capture one of them by the end of this summer or even by the end of the year, to be unrealistic.
Russia's defense ministry said that air defenses downed 112 Ukrainian drones over several regions early Friday, including 24 over the Moscow region. According to Associated Press, Russian Kursk region came under attack Thursday, injuring one senior local official. According to local authorities, Nikolai Volobyov, the head of Belovsky district in the Kursk region, was wounded in a drone attack on his car. He suffered a mine blast injury and fractures to his pelvis and arm. He was later transported to Moscow for medical treatment. Russian state media and government bodies have started actively publishing visual materials from affected areas. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that Russian forces would create a security buffer zone along the border of Russia and Ukraine. In a Thursday government meeting, Putin said that Russian troops were already carrying out orders to create the buffer zone. Putin accused the Ukrainian military of firing on targets with no military significance and said that a buffer zone would provide extra support to residents in border areas, including the Kursk region, where Ukrainian troops launched a surprise incursion in August 2024.
Какие повреждения?
Все пока вылетело.
Раненых?
В соседнем доме там женщину ранила и ребенка.
Как доехали? Все хорошо. Как чувствуете себя?
Нормально.
Нормально? Состояние?
Состояние хорошее, ребята довезли, молодцы. Сработал детектор, да?
Нет, я его просто увидел,
Увидели?
как бы уже
В лобовую ушел.
Да, в лобовую, если уже из опыта того, что мы видим за гражданскими сдвижениями, если попадет, то 99% двухсот вылечить. Поэтому лучше выпрыгнуть.
Успел выскочить.
Да.
Ну, играющий у нас десантник в прошлом.
Четверо пациентов тяжелых, двое детей пострадавших, они не тяжелые, поэтому медицинская помощь также оказывается в полном объеме.
Оперативно из Курска.
Philippine officials on Thursday condemned the Chinese Coast Guard, which it said used a water cannon to target one of two Philippine fishing boats conducting marine research in the disputed South China Sea. According to Associated Press, the Bureau of Fisheries in Manila said the incident, which took place on Wednesday near one of three sandbars called Sandy Cay, caused damage to one of the fishing vessels and endangered its crew members. The Chinese Coast Guard's aggressive interference happened as the two Philippine vessels were conducting routine marine scientific research in the barren white sandbars that lie between the Philippine-occupied Thitu Island and a Chinese-built island base called Sumy Reef, according to the Department of Agriculture and the Bureau of Fisheries in Manila. Officials said a Filipino scientific team were in Sandy Cay to collect sand samples from the sandbars. A larger Chinese Coast Guard ship water cannoned and sideswiped one of the vessels twice, resulting in some damage to the latter's port bow and smokestack and putting at risk lives of its civilian personnel on board, the Philippine officials said. They said the incident occurred within the territorial sea of the Philippines, off Thitu Island, which Filipinos call Pagasa, Tagalog for hope. China's Coast Guard blamed the Philippines for the collision, saying the vessels entered the waters illegally without China's permission and landed personnel on Sandy Cay, it said, using the Chinese name Taisien Reef for the sandbars. It said the vessels ignored warnings from the Chinese side and came dangerously close to the Chinese ship, which it said was conducting normal law enforcement operations. The Chinese Coast Guard landed on the reef to check on the activity, a statement said. It did not mention the use of a water cannon. The Philippines' actions seriously violated China's territorial sovereignty and undermined peace and stability in the South China Sea, it said. China has claimed that it has sovereignty rights over virtually the entire South China Sea and has vowed to defend its territories at all costs. The territorial conflicts are also a delicate fault line in the regional rivalry between China and the United States, which lays no claims to the busy sea passage but has backed smaller states like the Philippines as they confront Beijing's growing aggression in the offshore region. U.S. Ambassador to Manila Mary Kay Carlson said the Chinese Coast Guard's aggressive actions against a lawful civilian mission near Sandy Cay recklessly endangered lives and threatened regional stability. We stand with our Philippine allies in support of international law and a free and open Indo-Pacific, Carlson said in a post on X. In January, the Chinese Coast Guard and a naval helicopter drove away a group of Philippines fisheries ships that were attempting to conduct a scientific survey around Sandy Cay.
Chinese Coast Guard mission number 21559. This is